Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down with Jeff Richards of JMR Public Adjusting, and we had a fantastic conversation about the specialization that he does in his work and how it can conform and cross over to what we do at Royal Flush. So I want you to check out this video. There's some great tips, tricks about your insurance policy, what the fine print really means, and really importantly, you have to review that policy. So I am here with Jeff Richard of JMR Public Adjusting Service. Jeff, thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thanks for having me in, John.
I greatly appreciate it. So let's start off with, tell me just a little bit about yourself. How'd you get into the public adjusting world? And a little bit more about what you exactly do as a public adjuster.
Oh, thank you. And thanks again for having me in. I really appreciate the opportunity to collaborate and talk about how our worlds meet sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm a public insurance adjuster. The title is confusing to a lot of people. I represent Joe homeowner or Joe business owner at the time that they suffer a loss to their building, their home, their personal property, or their business operations. And I represent the policyholder in their claim to their insurance company for property losses.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing it since 1986. I worked for insurance companies, Aetna Insurance Company, Commerce Insurance Company.
Mm-hmm. So some of the big players out there.
I've worked as an independent adjuster for a long list of companies,
Mm-hmm.
national carriers, regional carriers, self-insured people. And I represented them as an independent adjuster, not as an employee of the company, nor an advocate for the policyholder, but an independent adjuster. I did that for 28 years.
Mm-hmm.
The industry has evolved and changed over time, and it has become a very contentious and adversarial circumstance that people find themselves in. Public adjusters advocate and represent the homeowner and the business owner to make sure that they're collecting all the benefits that are available to them
Mm-hmm.
under that particular policy.
Yeah.
So my training is in analyzing policy insurance forms, the devil's in the detail, as they say.
Yeah.
And in concert with that, preparing estimates of restoration. We call them loss appraisals,
Mm-hmm.
because the value of your loss that's covered by the insurance policy will be different than the cost of the cleanup and reconstruction in some cases, but ideally not below the value of your loss.
Yeah.
But it varies, depends on what happens.
Okay. That makes perfect sense. I've got a situation I kind of want to review with you and tell me how you would get involved, when a good point to be involved in, and kind of maybe some of those steps you would go through that. So let's take, Susie and Bobby, homeowner ABC, and they wake up in the morning or in the evening and they go down into their basement and they've had a sewage backup. I'm sure you've come across hundreds, if not thousands, of these claims in your career. And as we know, this can be extremely dirty, unsanitary, but certainly for the homeowner can be a very emotional and frustrating process. And so tell me about how and when you would get involved, maybe kind of the steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that homeowner should take when they go down there and they see a sewage backup at their property. Tell me what that would look like.
Well, fortunately for me, I haven't been in that circumstance myself. But having dealt with people in that circumstance for years, I know what they're thinking and what's going through their mind. The first thing they should do is call Royal Flush.
That's right.
They have a drain problem. They refer to it as a backup of the sewer. And it's at this point where what you say becomes really important.
Mm-hmm.
And it also becomes very important what exactly is causing this situation. Because you've occupied that building, that home, or that business for years and never had a problem.
Yeah.
Or there was a problem like this many years ago, but we had it corrected. Well, it's happening again. First thing you need to do is figure out what's happening and get it corrected. And you're the place to start.
Yeah. If I could stop you for a second, you said what you say and when you say it is very important, right? So tell me, go into a little bit more depth about that process and identifying with the insurance company or not talking to them or talking to somebody like yourself first. Kind of lay that out for us and what that would look like.
So the contract that people have between themselves and their insurance company is a contract, and it is a legal document, binding, and what it says is what is intended to be delivered and is the obligation of the company to deliver on too. So in situations like this, people say, my basement's flooded. The word flood is not a good word when you're talking about homeowners insurance because flood damage is not covered.
Yes.
You don't have a flood.
Mhm.
The sewer backed up. Well, that's maybe it did, maybe it didn't. In the insurance world, up until the past 5 or 10 years, a backup of the sewer meant the city system was so overwhelmed that the main line in the street had no capacity left, and what was in the street started flowing had nowhere else to go, and it flowed into your home.
Sure.
It's wastewater or worse that never came out of your home but is coming into your home. That's a backup of sewers, and that kind of a circumstance has always been excluded for as long as I've been doing it and well beyond back in time. Companies did not want to have that responsibility.
Yeah.
That circumstance rarely happens. Most cases are explained by a blockage in the drain line. And it's the blockage in the drain line which causes an overflow of wastewater, which comes into your home at the lowest point usually.
Exactly. That's what we come across 99% of the time.
So if you make a claim for a flooded basement or a backup of sewage, they're going to tell you on the phone it's not covered. Good luck to you. You're on your own.
Yeah.
You really need to present the claim as precisely as you can, because it can only work to your advantage. So if it's a blockage, where's the blockage? What prompted that blockage to develop, if we can determine that? I know that at Royal Flush you have video camera capabilities, which help answer a lot of questions and help the homeowner learn about what's wrong with my system. Are there alternatives to how I can fix it? And what am I faced with here?
Yeah.
So those are the first two things that you're thinking about and you're acting on. Of course, you're going to need to take steps to clean up the mess, and you should take precautions to be careful that there are contaminants in that water, and things that touch that water should be treated as contaminated.
Yeah.
You're going to begin the process right away of sorting through what you can save and what is been impacted by the water or the wastewater or whatever the case may be.
Sure. So walk me through that cleanup process. Is that something that the homeowner should call the insurance company? Should they call somebody like yourself? Should they call a disaster restoration company? How would those tie together, and how would you like to be involved in a process like that?
That's a good question. So let's talk first about the realities of the insurance world in terms of this sort of a peril. We call it, in the insurance language, we call it the peril of wastewater overflow. Years ago, this claim would get covered. You would have plenty of coverage in your homeowner's policy to clean up, hire professionals to do the cleanup, and reconstruct your finished basement. Not so anymore. Insurance companies have, initially it was a trickle. Now they're all doing it. They're changing the language in their forms ever so slightly to include the word overflow in the language that insulates them from obligations.
Gotcha.
People should look at their homeowner's policy before this happens. And they should ask their insurance agent or their company that, what is my policy intending to provide coverage for in the circumstance of a overflow of wastewater or a blockage in my main drain line? or a sewer backup. They're all
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. So
know.
what we come across is that 99% of people don't have coverage for this type of loss. However, also that 99% people don't know that a coverage like this does physically actually exist. So a homeowner can go to their insurance company and say, hey, I would like to get something like this covered and get quotes and potentially put that on their policy. Is that correct?
Yes, they can. The power play at the time of the incident is to call JMR Adjustment Service and tell me what's going on, and tell me also that you've already reached out to your insurance agent to request a copy of the policy declaration page.
Mhm.
You may have that on your files already. The policy declaration page, which changes from year to year, is where we start in our search for these additional coverages.
Mhm.
We'll start with the basic policy because some policies still have the full coverage available. Many policies, many good agents have talked with their customers about this change and endorsed the policy with protection for this peril
Sure.
and provided a sublimit of coverage. Sometimes it's modest, $2,500. At least it helps you with the cleanup.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, the cost to maintain the drain pipe is not typically eligible for coverage.
Yes.
There are circumstances, again, depending on what the root cause of the whole circumstance was, there may be coverage,
Mhm.
there may not be. But
Gotcha.
we're going to search for it. And unless we can find an exclusion, we're going to advocate that your policy should cover certain situations. For instance, um, if a big windstorm uh, uprooted a tree at its roots, which we see from time to time,
Mhm.
and that destroyed the drain pipe out in the front yard, you're going to have coverage for the restoration, the replacement of that drain line.
Sure.
Uh, More common, though, are deterioration conditions of drain
Mhm.
lines. And in those circumstances, the cost to maintain the drain pipe is not eligible for coverage. Resulting water damage and wastewater damage and all that goes along with that may be eligible for coverage, probably is limited to 2,500, but can be increased. I would suggest that people look to increase it in increments of 50,000.
Gotcha.
So purchase that $50,000 of coverage for a few dollars a year,
Mhm.
literally. Could be, I mean, I don't know, but I would suspect it would be under $50 a year.
Yeah. So we're talking pennies on the
Yeah,
dollar.
pennies on the dollar.
Mhm.
And among all the things that can happen in your home, this one's pretty likely to happen
Yeah.
to people.
And it's got one of the nastiest outcomes,
Nasty.
physically nastiest.
Yeah.
Um, so Jeff, let's get into a little bit more of the true value in service that you provide as a public adjuster. I certainly know a little bit about connecting and being that liaison between the insurance company and the homeowner and yourself. But if I had a claim, I am not an insurance expert. I certainly am probably pretty emotional about that process. I think that might be one of your best skills in dealing with homeowners is helping alleviate that stress and frustration. But tell me kind of some of those real values that you can bring to a homeowner, opposed to them directing or working with the insurance company themselves.
I'm glad you asked me that. And really, the best way it's summarized is that you're going to become informed.
Mhm.
You're going to understand what the claim process is going to look like before it happens. You're you're not going to be surprised by um, anything along the way. Uh, and your situation is unique. Your policy is unique. You purchase that policy for just these sorts of things,
Mhm.
and you should expect that that policy is going to deliver on what's available to
Mhm.
you. Um, as a public adjuster, my fee is linked to the amount of your settlement.
Mhm.
Um, the more money you collect, the more money I earn. Uh, it's a percentage of the settlement,
Yep.
typically. It's the standard fee is 10%
Mhm.
of the settlement. I don't get paid until you get paid. Um, there's statutes in place in Rhode Island and Massachusetts where I conduct business, um, which protect the consumer, if you will.
Mhm.
And One of the bits of advice that I have for policyholders is you should hire a public adjuster because you're going to get better results. But you should take care of who you hire as a public adjuster and when you hire that person. Take the time to educate yourself on what a public adjuster does
Yeah.
and what you should expect from a public adjuster, and check the references.
Yeah.
It's important that you have someone representing you when you go through things like this. There's a lot at stake. The implications of a sewer backup or a small fire even, a water loss that happens on your second floor and destroys your kitchen. I mean, families are displaced. It's not uncommon. When your home is not fit to live in and you have to be living and your kids are going to school and the pets, and where are you going to be living and what's damaged and where are we going to put it and who are we going to hire and where do we start?
Yeah.
So the value begins with helping you understand what you're faced with and organizing things for you and on your behalf so that, you're going to be made whole ultimately.
Absolutely. I think the perfect analogy for a lot of people, and I think myself can be as well, is think about knowing nothing about your vehicle, which a lot of people don't, right? They're going to go get it looked at or fixed, and somebody's going to tell them ABC's wrong, and they go, okay, and they're going to pay it. You're going to be there, in essence, at the dealership, supervising and negotiating what's going to be fixed to represent that person who owns the vehicle on their behalf, to making sure it's getting done right, at the right price, and what's right for you. And so when you put that to your home, I think that value is immeasurable, especially for the things I think that a lot of people don't really understand or don't think about when they have a loss or a backup in their basement. Hey, where are we going to go temporarily? The cost associated with food and housing and lodging, even if it is a day or a week or two. Those are other expenses that people haven't allocated for or really don't even think about, besides, the 5, 10, 15, 20, $100,000 of items and merchandise. That's what comes to mind. So I think somebody like yourself with that expertise in managing that project for that person, taking that burden off of them, helping them get it fixed, done right, fast, timely, and on budget, that cost is truly invaluable.
It pays for itself.
Yeah.
It really does. And it relieves you of the burdens of dealing with the insurance company and the rigmarole that they're going to put you through. Failing to do that, you're relying on the insurance company to set the value of the loss to your house.
Yes.
The insurance company who sent a field adjuster who spent maybe an hour at your house, maybe,
Yep.
unless he's busy. The insurance industry has also evolved in a way where they've created procedures that delay the processing of these claims. They'll look for any way to even delay the investigation of the claim. So we anticipate that, and we assemble proactively what we know they're going to be asking for.
Yeah.
Including and up to the value of the loss.
Sure.
And the losses that you've sustained. So the compensation agreement that we have amongst each other is, it's well worth the results you're going to get being represented by someone who's been through it 1,000 times.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
yeah, and the insurance companies, there's a lot of great companies out there, and a lot of them don't have any ill intent. However, their number one goal is to give you as little money as possible. That's what they're in business for. And so to have somebody represent you to ensure that you're maximizing what you're paying for, that homeowner's insurance policy that everybody has to have, that's what it's all about.
and that's what it's all about.
Let's transition and talk to maybe a little bit about the time that a claim takes, right? Every claim, of course, is unique. There's no two claims that are the same. But if you maybe had to put it in a little bit of a box to give somebody who maybe just had some of this damage from a sewer backup, if we're in New England and maybe we have a traditional ranch, 1,200 square feet, they've got sewer or water damage, kind of maybe walk me through that. What, a week, 2 weeks, what's the duration of maybe a traditional claim, if we could call it that?
The life cycle of a wastewater overflow
Yes.
claim, we'll call it.
Hmm.
We're going to try to stay away from the word backup to at least give ourselves a fighting chance
Sure.
to fully collect. Um, so in the first 1 to 3 days, think about uh, the system being repaired, the emergency response cleanup crew coming in. There's popular franchises out there
Hmm.
that specialize in these sorts of things. Royal Flush probably has a group of vendors that they
Yep.
will recommend to you. Anyone who will accept this job, you should allow them uh, to take the lead on how far they need to go to make it a healthy and clean, safe place. That process should take the initial phase 1 to 2 days, and then the drying and treatment of antimicrobials, uh, environmentally sensitive applications. By the time they dry it and get their equipment out of there, about a week has gone by,
Okay.
give or take. In that same time period, a claim has been reported to the company, and your policy declaration pages have at least been shared with the public adjuster.
Hmm.
We can begin the process of looking into what kind of relief you might have available. You're going to want to know if you have coverage as soon as you. Some of these things got to get done right away, no
Sure.
matter what. So that's what you need to be doing. But you're also going to want answers to, okay, if there's coverage, I can manage this more effectively
Yeah.
for my family. I can hire a public adjuster. I can, not have to worry about being here for all these meetings that the insurance company is going to want to
Hmm.
have. So the claim gets reported in that first week. Maybe by the end of that first week, field adjusters out there, they typically want to wait until after the emergency mitigation, the cleanup is done and the things are dry. They will often point to the boundaries that the mitigation company has drawn
Okay.
as the boundary of the value of your loss. You shouldn't presume that just because they went this far, that's as much that damage that was sustained. Oftentimes we find the damage goes well beyond that.
Interesting.
Certainly the implications of the damage can go well beyond that in terms of
Absolutely.
what has to be done to properly restore your home.
Hmm.
Flooring is continuous through rooms.
Yes.
We think about those kind of things. I've lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Yeah,
The
some of the
life
timing
cycle
things.
of
Yeah.
a claim. So the field adjuster comes out, say, in between the 6th and 10th day.
Hmm.
By then, we've assembled for you the complete itemized breakdown of what we envision being necessary to put things back the way they were before.
Gotcha.
With respect to your building, with respect to all your personal property items, we're going to collaborate with you on any specialty items, any unique personal property items that
Hmm.
that might have special value. So that is assembled. By the time the field adjuster shows up, company has everything they need.
Gotcha.
They have the invoice from Royal Flush. They have the cleanup crew's evidence of what they've completed. They'll get their invoice. That will be coming. Typically, those companies will negotiate with the insurance company when coverage is available, so the homeowner doesn't even need to worry about that.
Yep.
Nor do I get involved in anything to do with that emergency phase. My services begin after the the place has been mitigated, and then we work together in establishing the value of your loss. Once the insurance company comes to take a look at the situation, they're trained to say all the right things to you, and
Hmm.
you're going to think when they leave that everything's going to just unfold and you'll have a check in no time. Well, it
Hmm.
doesn't really work like that. They've layered the process where the person who shows up will be, whether he's a staff person, a staff employee of that company, or an independent adjuster, or a third-party administrator's building consultant. They've created all these layers where after the inspection, the person that writes the report submits it to his supervisor, and eventually it gets to someone who has the authority to say, you can share that with the customer.
Gotcha.
That can take weeks.
Hmm.
It's absurd. Literally can take months,
Yeah.
depending on a variety of factors. If things go swimmingly, within a couple of weeks, you'll have an offer. It'll be a reasonable offer, but there'll be some back and forth.
Mhm.
So within 6 to 8 weeks, you should have a settled claim. You should know what your budget is. You will have been in touch with some contractors
Mhm.
whose schedules you'll see it full.
Of course, it's a big variable in these projects.
So nothing's gonna, the situation's not gonna be resolved for months probably.
Mhm.
But the insurance process, what happens in those first 10 days, critical.
Gotcha.
Because you're going to be fully informed. You're going to have an understanding of how things are going to unfold. It's going to be a matter of where you're, um, you know, you have control over the value of the loss
Mhm.
to your home, which you
Gotcha.
should have control of that.
Yeah, most
Some
definitely.
control of it.
Yeah.
Don't let them dictate to you, what's what.
Gotcha. And then let's wrap it up with where I think us at Royal Flush and you as a public adjuster can have a good marriage, and kind of some of the ways that we work together. In that, a lot of times we're getting the call for the backup where that damage has occurred, and that's a point where that customer is not sure what to do, not sure how to proceed, not sure if something is covered or not covered, um, not sure if this is something, an expense that should be taken out of their pocket, or if they should pursue that insurance claim. And so, for us, what our goal is to educate that customer. Whenever the word insurance gets involved, we encourage them to call their insurance directly and to call a public adjuster to represent them. But I know for us, a lot of people are unsure how and when to make that decision, where the problem's been identified in that pipe, whether it be severe scale in the cast iron, maybe something's cracked or broken. Here in New England, we have a lot of clay pipe, heavy roots. So we've identified the cause of the issue of the backup. And now we want to present that customer with a permanent solution.
Mhm.
So what advice would you have for that customer? Should they go ahead and hire somebody like us to solve it right away? Should they wait to see if the insurance is going to help potentially cover or pay for that fix? Would that not be the case unless that line is insured as part of the policy? What are your thoughts on something like that?
So what I would say to that is, ask yourself, what would you do if you didn't have insurance at all? You're
Mhm.
going to make smart decisions that way.
Yeah.
You're going to get enough information where you're going to be able to make a pretty good decision.
Mhm.
The more information you have, the better. So, a repair is almost always more cost effective than replacement.
Yes.
So, that would be my advice with respect to the immediate source and correcting the source of the problem.
Hmm.
I would also always say, always file a claim. There's no harm in looking into it. File the claim, give them notice of the loss, tell them you had an overflow of wastewater. They'll collect the information they need to create their claim. There's no problem with you creating that claim before we've talked,
Hmm.
but we should talk soon.
Yeah.
You should report your claim right away. If you don't have a copy of your policy or the policy declaration pages, you should get that when you report your claim. You should share that with your public adjuster.
Hmm.
It won't take long to get some of the answers that you need.
Gotcha.
Do I have some coverage here? Is it limited dollars, or is there a chance that it's not limited?
Sure. Is it worth it? I think that's a great point that you brought up. I know in the people I talk to on a daily basis, people are petrified to make a claim on their insurance.
Oh, yeah.
Can you speak to it all? I love that your suggestion was make the claim almost as if there's really no harm
There is no
in
harm.
starting that process. So tell me a little bit about that, and maybe why do some people have that misconception? I think everybody thinks, well, if I make a claim, my policy is going to increase in cost, right?
Well,
So tell me
yeah.
some of that experience you've come across with that.
So, I don't really have anything as far as hard evidence, but advertisements that we've seen over the years and just public consumption of what the perception that the insurance company wants you to have of them
Hmm.
has put you in a position, has created this mentality that if this insurance company won't insure me anymore, I might be without insurance.
Yes.
It's not the case.
Mhm.
There's safety nets. Every state has created um, uh, an insurance company, for lack of a better word, that is a safety net for all homeowners. And truthfully, the claim service you get from that safety net company is better than most of the other companies that we deal with.
Gotcha.
So people are made to think that they're going to lose their insurance policy, that they've been with that company for years.
Mhm.
Believe me, the company has no loyalty to you.
Absolutely not.
Uh, the the insurance companies also take a very uh, they can they're intimidating
Mhm.
for a reason.
Yeah,
They're,
absolutely.
they come out there and they put things in their cover letters and their form letters that are intimidating. I'll leave it
Absolutely.
at that.
Yeah, and that's where the value of you can come in.
Yeah,
You can represent them,
right.
take that intimidation factor away. And the worst thing that can happen is you file a claim and they say, "Hey, we're not going to cover it."
It's not covered. And I might tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
If it's not covered, I'm not going to be able to create the coverage for you.
Yep.
It's that's where we have to start. Um,
And there's no harm in pursuing that
Not at
process,
all.
right?
Not at all.
Yeah.
And there should be no trepidation or hesitation of calling it what it is, because the facts are the facts. And when you can point to the facts and create gray area in insurance contracts,
Hmm.
that's a good thing
Yeah,
for a consumer.
absolutely.
So I don't know if that
Yeah,
answers your question or
it
not.
does. And then one final thing I want to uncover with you, Jeff, is that we've had a couple situations here at Royal Flush where a sewer line has not been covered due to whatever language in the policy, and the insurance company has said we will go ahead and cover some of the damages inside in that basement. And so a customer has, gone through that couple weeks, maybe a couple months process, and they get their basement built back to the way they want. However, that line that we identified because of the issue, whether that was a cast iron pipe that was maybe damaged or broken or corroded, or a clay pipe that had roots, is still existing. This is, I feel, our biggest point and where we really can work with somebody like yourself and these people in the insurance company, where if it's not covered and that problem still exists, we can come in ideally before the hand or right as that problem occurs, but we can also come in afterwards and give you the peace of mind of giving you the permanent solution, knowing that it will never happen again.
Mm.
That's something that I try to get across to as many people as possible, that even if it's not covered at that time or something doesn't work out with those policies, that line still should be addressed, because if it's happened once, there's a good chance it's going to happen again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I've never been in a circumstance where I've come in behind Royal Flush for a sewer overflow or backup. It just hasn't happened.
Exactly, right?
So the you know, through no fault of your own, you can't see what's underground.
Hmm.
Um, the best solution is to create a situation where you can tell the next guy.
Yeah.
One thing you're not going to have to worry about, the drain system.
Yeah. I love the way you put that, that under no circumstances there ever been a situation where there has been a sewage backup or an insurance claim after a pipe that's been lined by Royal Flush.
Right.
So, Jeff, what I think maybe some of my biggest takeaways and what I've learned from our conversation today is certainly getting to know you a little bit more about your background and your expertise and what actually a public adjuster does. That's immense value. Two, for me, definitely that there is absolutely no harm in pursuing that claim, right? Starting the process, getting that ball rolling. Don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated. I think that's immense value. I think a lot of people have a real trepidation about that.
Yep.
And that's a great piece of advice. And then finally, I think the most impactful one is that you should be taking a look at your policy, right? Really digging into understanding what that is. And then that's where your value can really come in. That your job and your goal is to be that liaison between the homeowner and the insurance company. That at the end of the day, to get them the most that they can within the boundaries of that policy, and to get that process sped up and ideally fixed back just as good as new, or if not maybe a little bit better, than what was there before.
It'll be new.
And so I think those are great tips and advice and great pieces of information. I really appreciate your time today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate it.
Yeah. Good, Kyle?